Stopped.
Great. And we're live again.
And
I
we're
just went
live again.
live on a new one.
Okay, so let me close this.
Hey, we're back. And
Oh,
we're
that's
better
the
than
old
ever.
one.
Just kidding. We're not better than ever. We might be better than ever. Who knows? Either way, we're back. We lost power.
There we go.
I don't want to blame the folks over at Ears Up, but you know. Hey, we're back. And it's working.
The guys over in Scraping the Vault are using up all the electricity.
Yeah, they're
and
hogging all our bandwidth.
They wouldn't let us out here in the trailer get any bandwidth.
Yeah, and I hear the
So-
Supreme Resort guys are out back just like cutting through all the wires
They
and
are.
coming into
They're
our trailer.
chewing through the wires and banging on the trailer walls.
right.
All right. So
Anyway,
we're back.
I was saying how
Hold on. Let me start this
we got to start
recording
recording
back up.
again.
All right. Here we go. Let's see. Okay. You were saying you finished Jedi Fallen Order.
Well, yes, Fallen Order was the first game. Survivor's the second game. Something is playing on Rob's YouTube. We are professionals.
We are professionals.
What I would like to do is I would like to do like a rundown of both the synopsis of both games. From what I understand, there's supposed to be a third game too. And then I'd love to, because now I might have the hardware for it. I'd love to try and do some streaming of me playing New Game Plus on
that'd be fun.
Jedi
on like
Grandmaster
Twitch.
level.
Do you want to do it on Twitch?
That, or I think we have a Bantha Milk Twitch.
We do.
You might have gotten like an alert the other day that I had tried to sign into it. I actually maybe not, because I tried to log in and I couldn't remember what the password is.
Okay.
Either way,
do you want me to tell you the password? 123.
It's the same combination I have on my luggage. So yeah, it was a great game. I'll look forward in the next couple of weeks here to maybe reviewing it on here in more depth, talking about the story, talking about the gameplay.
Was this the latest one that came out on PS5?
Yes.
But then what were you playing it on PC? You got a PS5?
So I have a year of no interest to pay it off.
Okay, there you go.
But we have a Best Buy card.
Yes.
And my wife is too nice to me. And in that, like, literally, and I it's not like I lied. I essentially said, listen, my entire life I've played video games, and that's my way of relaxing. And they've literally stopped making new video games for PlayStation 4.
Sure,
like it's done.
Yeah, so you have no way of playing
new ones to play. Yeah. And she was like, "Yeah, I get it." And so now I have PS5.
All right, well, just make sure.
Like every time I play it, I feel awful.
So
I'm playing it like feeling terrible, like I should not
guilty.
Yeah, it's buyer's. Look, I never buy anything for myself, and still it's just like,
But you have a whole year.
Yes.
And as a former Best Buy employee, make sure you pay off.
Yeah. Otherwise, I can look forward to all that interest.
Yes, you will get all that interest back at the end of the year.
Oh yeah.
So whatever it was,
it's like $400, I think.
$400.
It's like $20 a month or something like that. I don't know.
I think it'll be more than that. Yeah. And
it's doable.
So make sure you do, and it won't show up accurately. But at the very end, if you make sure you paid all off in that time frame, then all the interest that says that you're accruing will be wiped off of your account. Yes. So But yes,
tricks of the trade with Rob.
That's right. And did you buy did they pressure you into the protection plan also?
Protection plan. I did not. I'll tell you, the Best Buy in Deptford is hurting. There was like 2 people working in the entire store.
Wow.
So
did they even ask?
No.
When I was there, now this is also going back
20 years,
25. I'm trying to think if I was just out of college. I think I was still in college. I'm talking like 98, somewhere between 98 and 2000. When I was working there, they were really pushing us to sell it.
Sure.
And
I too remember when I was 12 and that was going on.
And I was selling computers, and every Sunday there would be a computer that was on special, which we were selling it for less than we paid for it. So we were losing money on every one, but we had to sell the protection plans. So they told us, if you let one go without even the 1-year protection plan, we're losing money. And not that you're going to get called into an office, but they're like going to be very angry.
Right.
So I remember one time telling a guy, I was like, "Oh, let me tell you about the protection." He's like, "Nah, I don't want to hear it." I'm like, "All right, I know you don't want to hear it, but just let me explain." He's like, "No." And then he's like, "If you tell me again, I'm walking out of here." And I'm like, "Perfect. Like, that's what I want to hear."
That's fine.
We're losing money. The next guy behind you is going to buy this computer and he's going to buy the protection plan.
So did he wind up walking out?
So I was like, "Let me just tell you one more thing." I was like, I'm telling you, you would be asinine not to get it. He goes, I don't want it. Ring it up. I'm leaving. I go, okay. He went up to the manager. He told the manager that I called him an ass, which I didn't. I said he would be asinine to not get it.
Sure.
So slight play on words.
Sure.
So the manager came by and he said, look, I love what you're doing. Your suggested sailing is awesome, but don't call the customers asses. I said, I didn't. He goes, nah,
You didn't, but you
but you
did.
did.
He can read between the
He
lines.
can read between the lines.
He's an ass. He's not dumb.
He's not dumb. So yeah. So that was one of my finer moments
I
of,
like that.
of sales tactics. And that one was like legendary in the stores.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, like people were like, that's the guy that called a customer an asshole to his face. I'm like, I never said that.
But that's how it goes.
But that's how it goes. That's how
your legend just
yeah,
grows.
it just grows. Yeah.
You know, if you go back to that Best Buy, still to this day, they talk about Bobby.
Yes, the guy Bobby
guy
who sold.
I hear he slapped the guy
That's what
and
happened.
put him in a chokehold until he agreed to the 4-year protection plan. We didn't even sell a 4-year
We didn't
protection
sell a
plan.
4-year protection plan, but he got him into two-year protection plans and told him it'll last for 4
Freaking
years.
Bobby, man.
That guy
He
Bobby
was a
was
legend.
legendary.
Legendary.
His name is on the wall.
Just Bobby.
So, yep, just Bobby.
There's a Mister in front of it. But,
yeah. So okay. So what did you think of the graphics of the PS5 versus the graphics of PS4?
It's so much different. It is
Okay.
so much better. Like, and honestly, for me, it's not necessarily graphics, and the graphics are so much better. They really are. But for me, the big thing that I hate in games that like drives me insane is loading screens.
Right.
I hate them so much.
I hate you have to download the whole game. If they, I mean, this is going back when they were on DVDs and
Sure.
Blu-rays and stuff. You would get the game, you put it in, and then you have to wait 2 hours to download the whole thing and then upload the updates and all that
Yep.
other good stuff. And then, like you said, first game you play and a loading screen.
Yep.
You're like, why is there a loading screen? I just downloaded the entire game.
Yep. So PS5 loading screens are like night and day difference between the PS4. Like my PS4, it was on its last legs. I've owned that thing. I bought that when I lived in Louisiana, so probably 9 or 10 years, the same one, and I bought it pre-owned.
Okay.
So like it's
definitely seen its years. Yeah.
So like it sounded like a helicopter every time you turned it on. It's just like but like in Jedi Survivor, you do a fast travel, where you're like, I want to be on this part of the map, and 5 seconds later you're on that part of the map.
Okay.
Like it is a fast travel.
It is a fast
any
travel.
fast travels in any games on PS4, I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna go get a soda.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's like the wheel of doom. It's just going around.
Even like
around.
Elden Ring. Elden Ring is a super intensive game, and I didn't realize when I bought the PS4 version that you get an automatic upgrade to the PS5 version.
Okay.
So even on the PS5 version on the PS5, the loading screens are so quick, and
Awesome.
that was my least favorite part of that game. Was I die so much because it's such a hard game,
right?
And you're just like twiddling your thumbs
you're
for
waiting
40 seconds. But yeah, that was the big thing is like just the memory capability of like having so much able to be drawn so quickly.
Okay.
The other big thing with the PS5 is the controller, because it has the adaptive triggers.
Okay.
So like they act just like regular trigger buttons, but also for certain games you can have it so like it applies pressure, like back pressure to it.
Okay.
So like it can be harder to press or like
cool.
I'm playing one game that I have for free on the PS Plus. It's called Returnal, which is like, it was a game of the year last year. It's a roguelike first person shooter. And like if you like the left trigger, if you hold it halfway, you zoom.
Okay.
But if you pull it the entire way, you do your guns like special.
Like it's special thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like it just added like that's one of the big things with that is just that that adaptive trigger thing. But the game itself was great. The gameplay itself was much better than the first one.
Okay.
The story was not as good as the first one. But again, I'll go more into detail about the story, I think, when we can kind of do a deep dive. But
yeah.
It was good still.
Okay.
It was just not as I went into the first one with, I don't think, as huge expectations.
Okay.
And I was rewarded for that.
Okay.
And because it was so good, I went into this one with slightly bigger expectations, and I think I was kind of swatted down for that.
Right, because you were like, oh, this is gonna be so awesome.
Yeah. But it not in that it just like fell flat. It's just it wasn't telling that kind of story.
Okay.
It was telling a more small scale story. And clearly, and part of the good thing about playing it so much later than when it came out
Okay.
is that, like, people have been talking about it, and there are plans for a sequel already.
All right. Cool.
So like I believe the plan
This is
for
with Cal
this.
Kestis.
Mhm.
Okay.
I think the plan for the Cal Kestis story is a trilogy, and like if you look at this game like it's the second in a trilogy, it makes more sense.
Okay.
Like it's a more personal story. It's more about his growth and his brain and
And
his
he
like
finishes the
mental
game and
state.
stuck in carbonite.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. One of his hands chopped off,
Yep.
and
Uh-huh. He kisses his
he
sister.
kisses his
Yeah.
sister, and
Uh-huh.
yeah,
He finds out the bad guy's his dad.
all the Star Wars
All the
things.
Star
Every
Wars
single
things.
Star
Yep.
Wars thing
And there's a
happens to
Wilhelm
Cal.
screen.
I
Every
actually
single.
think there is a Wilhelm screen now that you mention it. You say that, but I'm pretty sure
There
I
has to
like,
be. It
yeah,
wouldn't be a Star Wars thing without a
that's right.
Wilhelm screen.
But yeah, it was great. I finished it too quickly.
Okay.
um,
That's why you haven't texted me in
no,
4 weeks.
well, no, that's not shocking. I don't know what you're like surprised about that. And I have texted you. Like what I did notice is like I felt kind of bad. I was like, oh man, we were supposed to podcast, and then like you went radio silent. I'm like, oh man, and Peg's like, oh, he has COVID.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, I
Yeah.
feel a little better. I couldn't have podcasted with him anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. You wouldn't have been
Um,
able to come over anyway.
yeah.
And then, yeah.
But
So,
anyway,
and I've
also,
been, volleyball's been
yeah,
crazy
and
right
I know
now as
you've
well.
been
Yeah.
there. And I've been crazy. Life is crazy. Life
Yes.
is crazy for everyone.
Yep. And when we're making all the money that we're making off of this,
Yeah, I mean,
we
the
go a
ro-
month in between episodes because,
I mean, what are we gonna do? I can't. There's only so much money I can make from my podcast.
right. Yeah.
I think when I get home, my wife would be like, Nick,
Yeah.
we got to
Like
talk
we're
about
making too
how
much
much
money.
money we're
Yeah.
making.
We have too many people listening to us. We're making way too
Like
much money.
you're at work all day,
Yep.
and then you go and do this podcast at night, and you make
Make more money there.
unspeakable money,
Unspeakable money.
and
Yeah.
it's a problem.
Yeah. It is a problem.
Yeah.
Um,
Anyway, if you want to send money to Bantha Podcast headquarters, you're welcome to
we're
do
poor.
so. We are poor. But it was Star Wars Day yesterday.
It was
and that
Star
is what we
Wars
should
Day
talk
yesterday.
about. I know both of us watched Tales of the Empire.
Yep.
There was the release of another Acolyte trailer.
Yes, which I did not watch. Did
It's
you
good.
watch it?
Yeah,
It was good. Okay.
it looks good. There's some good stuff happening.
I'm excited for the Acolyte because there's Jedi.
Yeah,
which is what makes Star Wars different than everything else. Are the Jedi? Are the glowing swords?
yeah, the space wizards.
Space wizards.
And I don't know why I was thinking about this. For whatever reason, TikTok has been sending like weird different things to my algorithm recently. Not weird,
Okay.
but like different, like movie quote or movie scenes, like whole movie scenes. Like
Okay.
whatever. But they've started pumping some Mandalorian scenes my way too, and it would be like scenes of Luke, and it was so weird to me for whatever reason. I'm sure we mentioned it on the podcast before, but thinking about, oh, it's Luke Skywalker. It's the main character of Star Wars.
Right.
It's the person we've seen the absolute least of now.
Yes, yeah.
Like he is the main character of Star Wars, and like for whatever reason they decided, oh, we can't touch Luke.
Yeah, and it's funny, like even like things are coming out now where Mark Hamill was saying, this is probably a while back now or whatever, but like how his character evolved in episode 7, 8, and 9
Right.
wasn't what he was anticipating, right. And like just the way they did Luke, I don't want to say they did him dirty, but just how they transformed him in the end of the series, and then like people loved him,
Yep.
and people want more of him. And so when you can do a flashback, basically like what the Mandalorian is in the timeline,
right,
and you can bring him back into it, sure, why not?
Yeah.
Like I remember when that ship first came in, we were like, yes,
Yep.
like this has to be him. And we were like, everybody was speculating because they wanted to be the one to break the news that it wasn't Luke.
Right.
They wanted, oh, it's got to be Ahsoka, or it's this, or it's that. But everybody deep down inside knew it was going to be Luke.
Except apparently for what's her name, who played Bo-Katan. What's her name?
She didn't know. Katie Sackhoff.
Yes, Katie Sackhoff.
Sackhoff.
She has a podcast, and I just saw a video of her interviewing Ming-Na Wen.
Okay.
And apparently Katie was like, yeah, because they were very secretive, and like even R2 that they shot with, like he was not R2 colored. He was like red and green or green. Right. Like it was a completely different color. And they specifically didn't tell the actors who it was.
Okay.
And Katie Sackhoff was like, I thought it was Kiadi. I think she said, I thought it was Kiadi Mundi or something like that.
Okay.
That's who they told
That's
me
who
it
they told
was.
him was gonna
And
be.
Ming Na Wen was like, oh, I knew. She's
I
like,
know.
you knew? I was like, I knew it was Luke Skywalker. Come on. With
Come
the
on, who would it be?
yeah,
Yeah,
apparently like Katie Sackhoff was remarkably naive about the entire thing and
okay.
had no idea
That's so
until
funny.
they debuted it, and she like texted her and she's like, did you know?
Did you did
Yeah.
you know this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So yeah, I guess we're not the only ones who love to see Luke.
yeah.
I just thought it was interesting, and I have for a while. It's like they're telling all these really great Star Wars stories, but wouldn't it be great just to tell us the damn story we've wanted for
Yeah,
40
the one that
years?
we've actually wanted.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
exactly. Before we get into the other things, and maybe eventually we'll go back over this because you haven't seen the end of it, but I did watch the end of the Bad Batch. And Nick, you can close your ears for a minute. I'm not going to give away any spoilers per se, but it ended like the last 4 episodes were like the final big story arc. You know how
Mhm.
they do the cartoons that way? It's like even with Mandalorian, like the first 3 episodes were a little mini story
Right.
arc. So the last four, I think we left off and Omega was captured again.
Yes.
Yes. So of course you knew they're going to try and go and save her. Like
Mhm.
that's what the Bad Batch would do. So the last 4 episodes was
The
basically
rescue
the
mission.
rescue mission. So it was very good. I'm not going to go into too much detail because and everybody who's posted that I've seen who's posted on online about it without giving out spoilers said it was the best ending that they could do.
Mhm.
So it was a very neat and tidy ending. It was good. I liked it. I liked how it ended. And then they did do a little bit of a flash forward about 20 years or so. And then there was a lot of speculation as to when this took place, like how old was she? And somebody did the math and said, all right, at this point, she's 28 years old. So
Mhm.
if you did watch it at the very, very end, we'll say roughly she's about 28 years old at this time.
Okay.
And the scene that we see is what you think she's talking about going to.
Okay.
So I'm not going to tell you too much because whatever, but whatever. So it was very good. It was a very good rescue mission. I was hoping for a little bit more.
Mhm.
Crosshairs did have a good redemption arc. It could have been a little bit better, but it was a good redemption arc. And who was the one? I forget the other guy that like fell early on in the season, and we never saw him again. It wasn't Echo because then Echo came back, but
Tech.
Tech. I was really hoping for a Tech return, but then everybody was like, obviously he's not coming back, blah
Yeah.
blah blah, whatever. So, but it did wrap up very nicely. So, maybe our next one you can check out the last 4 episodes
Oh, I
and we
got
can
it.
do the whole thing and talk about it all in more depth. But it was a very good conclusion, and I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the whole season. Um, and I think, like I said before, when I went back and rewatched seasons 1 and 2, it is a lot better viewed in big chunks.
Right.
One episode a week with the first season of The Mandalorian. We've talked about this 1,000 times. I was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning
Right.
to watch it. This, I was like, oh, it's Friday. I need to watch The Bad Batch, and I would eventually get to it. It was never cliffhangy enough that I can't wait till next Wednesday.
Right.
And it was good, but it wasn't so good that you were like, I have to watch it.
Sure.
So that's that. So that's our spoiler-free review of the Bad Batch
Series finale, right?
series finale.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all done. Um there's really I mean, and like they jumped ahead, so I guess if they wanted to, they could do a live action with her as a 28-year-old
Sure.
in the future. We're not really going to see much of the rest of the Bad Batch guys because they did age a lot.
Right.
But it could be like when we saw uh, who were the 3 that we saw in Rebels? Do you remember the clones that we saw?
Oh,
And even
thought.
we even saw Rex at one point as an older
Yeah, I
rebel.
don't
So
remember.
we could see them, popping into things as older characters, whatever, eventually.
Yeah, I tend to think that, and I could be wrong about this, but I tend to think that they're beginning the process of leaving this time period behind for a
Yeah.
while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With
Especially with the Acolyte starting. But then
yeah,
we're going back to the Mandalorian movie
sure.
in a
Yeah,
year
so
or whatever
it
it
could
comes
be
out. So
ending.
yeah.
Maybe we'll see her in that. Honestly, it's very easily that they're setting up that
Yeah.
she's in. In
And
that.
the whole time we're like, oh, she's force sensitive, blah blah blah. They never
They never really.
explored
Yeah,
that at all.
yeah,
At all. So it was a little disappointing. I was really hoping that she would be a little bit more force sensitive.
and that would mean something.
That would mean something.
Yeah,
Yeah. But because everybody was like, oh, wait till she uses the force. But she
right. She
never
never does.
never does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and they probably did that on purpose. I would bet that that was like a red herring sort of a thing that they
yeah.
did. But
Yeah.
again, that just seems to me like, hey, let's dangle what the fans want in
Uh-huh.
front of them and not give it to them, like
Might as well,
Luke
like Luke,
Skywalker. Like
we'll throw Luke walking by in the background and just
yeah,
like
oh, did you see that? That was
he's
Luke.
eating a churro and he's like, oh, hey, and then keeps walking.
And then the next day there's a Wikipedia page. It says Luke's churro.
Luke's churro, yeah,
Yeah,
and you can get an autograph. You can
that's
get an
right.
autograph of Luke's
At
at
the
Comic
freaking
Con.
yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway, that being said, yeah, I think especially leaning into the High Republic era.
yeah.
I have now finished 3 High Republic era books.
Okay.
Light of the Jedi was the first one. You had read that one, right?
Yes.
And then the second one was that's gonna annoy me. There are 3 in the trilogy. The third one was Fallen Star.
Okay.
The Rising Storm was the second one,
Okay.
and the third one was Fallen Star. And now I'm on to those are the big 3 novels in Phase 1 of High Republic.
All right.
And now I've moved on to the Phase 2 portion where I'm reading Eye of Darkness,
Okay.
and it's all kind of following the same storyline. Like the whole, how many of these have you read? A lot of these books?
Just
Or
one of
yeah,
them.
so like the whole story that what's up, dude? How you doing? The whole okay, you do you. Get what you gotta. You good? Later, skater. How dare you?
We had
Ugh,
a surprise guest that didn't even come on the show, just interrupted the show.
just adjacent, show
Yeah,
adjacent.
show adjacent. She was doing her own podcast earlier
That's right.
today.
I'm sure she was.
Yeah.
Was it a real one or a fake
It
one?
was still spilling the tea, so it was a fake one.
I see. Just
Um,
hit record.
I know.
Oh.
I want to. Well, then
You should just set it up and hit record one day.
I just have an extra mic hanging
Yeah,
down
they
that they
wouldn't
don't
even
know
know.
about. Yeah.
Anyway, so the whole High Republic era story they're telling right now is essentially, the High Republic is this time period about, 100 between 100 years before and like 1,000 years before where we are right now.
Right.
And it's supposed to signify like the Republic at its highest, at its most powerful, at its most hubristic, and the Jedi as well. And so, like, in this storyline, the big bad of the series is a group called the Nile, led by Marchion Ro or Marchion Ro. I don't know how you say it. And like, it's all about like them as the threat to the galaxy over the course of these 3 books. And essentially, it's cool because it's like signaling the downfall of the Jedi and the Republic
Right.
well ahead of time, because it's like, hey, here's this threat. They're not that much of a threat.
Yeah.
Big bad
won't
thing
worry.
happens.
Yeah, we won't worry about that.
Oh, let's
We're okay.
react. Oh, we killed him. We're all good now. Big bad things happen. And so like it's essentially just the Republic and the Jedi like acting like, oh, we got this, and not having it
not
at all.
having it at all.
Which I think is going to play a lot into the Acolyte. Even just like the descriptions of things in the High Republic are like the robes that the Jedi, you see them wearing in the trailer.
Okay.
It's exactly how they describe the Jedi robes in the High Republic. They're like kind of gold trimmed and really fancy. The lightsabers in the High Republic were supposed to be a lot more intricate and like ornate and almost ornamental, because they weren't really supposed to be using them all that
Right.
much.
They didn't need to use them
Yeah.
that much because they were such a powerhouse.
Yeah. And then the other thing with them was like the Guardian protocols. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
So that's something that I don't know when they added this to Star Wars lore, but apparently the Jedi have a thing called the Guardian protocol.
Okay.
And it's essentially whenever there's a dire need to the galaxy, they can enact the Guardian protocols, which speeds up the training of Padawans. It promotes Jedi from Padawan to Knight probably quicker than normal.
Okay.
And it intensifies battle training. It's like when the galaxy's at war.
Sure.
It's what happened during the Clone Wars. There was
right.
the Guardian Protocol.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was it, but apparently that is what happened. And they talk about that in these books too, because the threat of the Nile happens, And after the second book, when there's this big freaking thing, they enact the Guardian, or the third book maybe, they enact the Guardian protocols because there's a full on galactic scale war, and all of a sudden so many Jedi are dying, and they need to replace people like soldiers in the field.
Sure, kind of like the
Um,
draft.
exactly,
Yeah.
honestly. So yeah, it was there's a lot of new and interesting information that makes a lot of sense, connects to today. And I think the same with like Jedi Survivor. And with, I think it'll be the same with the Acolyte. Like, you won't need to read any of these books in order to get it,
Sure.
but if you do, you're gonna
It'll
be
help.
rewarded
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna see things that you're like, oh man.
I remember. Yeah.
Like when in Jedi Survivor, like the first Jedi Fallen Order game, the one, like, it's, have you ever played any of the Uncharted games?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So like the big thing with Jedi Survivor, it's kind of Uncharted like, you know,
Right.
you're in delving into ancient ruins and finding stuff. And the first game was about the Zepho, which were like these ancient alien race of Force users that I don't know if they just decided they didn't like or they were boring, but we never heard about them ever again. But this whole
Kind of
second,
like midichlorians.
exactly,
Yeah.
it was like, ah, it didn't work out. Let's see what we can
Let's see
shift
what
to.
else we can do.
So the second game, instead of like Zepho ruins, you're exploring High Republic ruins. And so like you get all these different lore things, and like a part of the book or a part of the game is where we see an actual like a Nihil attack.
Okay.
And it's like, oh, I'm reading these books right now. I know that.
I
That's
know
pretty
that.
rad. I know
Yeah.
how they got
Uh-huh.
there. And like the first book, the big you might remember, actually, you read the big event that happened was the Great Hyperspace Disaster. It was like this ship that like was in hyperspace and exploded, and it sent all this debris everywhere at light speed and was destroying all this crap. Um, and so like one of the places you visit in the game is it's called the Shattered Moon, and it's a moon that's just been obliterated. Essentially, just
Okay.
pieces of it are flying everywhere. And they don't mention it, but you know, you're left to infer that this moon was destroyed by the great hyperspace
Okay.
disaster in this book. So they do a pretty good job about rewarding people for
Yeah.
digging into that expanded lore stuff. So I think if you have not and you're looking at the Acolyte, excited about it, check out some of the stuff and you're gonna be excited.
You'll be excited. I think that's what I like a lot about Star Wars, and especially now with Dave Filoni taking over. He, when Disney took over, they said everything before us is no longer
Right.
Star Wars. But now Dave Filoni's like, but there's such good stories out there. I'm going to start incorporating them into
Yep.
my stuff. So I do like that he is blurring the lines between canon and non-canon. And if you enjoy more than just watching episodes 4, 5, and 6, if you enjoy Star Wars that much that you're reading books or comics or something like that, you are rewarded in a lot of the newer movies by saying, "Oh yeah, I remember like Thrawn." Like everybody couldn't wait for Thrawn
Right.
because they all read the books and they were like, "Yo, he's such a baddie" and all this stuff. And even in this the series that came out yesterday, the Tales of the Empire, we see there's a callback to Thrawn in here as well,
Sure.
which was awesome. And as I'm watching, I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, like, and it's the animated Thrawn, which means it's not the dad bod
Yeah,
Thrawn.
that's
It's
right. He's in
it's
his full form,
yeah,
not even wearing the white uniform yet.
no, yeah. So it's cool. So yeah, I do like the fact that there is so much Star Wars stuff out there that if you want to dig deeper into things, you can.
And I think part of the dynamic shift that's happening too is like, you know, in the old expanded universe, it was like, all right, we had 3 movies, and the last one came out in '85, and that's it.
Yeah,
And so like after 1985, between 85 and like 2000 or like whatever it was when 1999 when Phantom Menace came out, the main driver behind the Star Wars lore and the Star Wars story was the books and the
right.
comics.
Yeah,
Like that's where all the big stuff happened. Like you know, I don't know, like they're big galaxy shaping things, huge stories with galaxy wide implications. Once the Disney brand took over and they kind of rebooted and started making more stuff and churning stuff out, you know, they still had these things, but the books became more small scale because they
yes.
couldn't, like we talked about with John Jackson, like you can only do so much, but you know, you can't kill this person.
Yeah,
You
you
can't, you know what I
can't kill
mean?
this guy. You can't,
You
you can,
can't like
but
do
it
this,
is
mess this
funny when
up.
they create a new character because you're like, "Oh, this
Uh,
is a new guy.
here's a red shirt.
Here's a
Yeah.
red shirt." So,
But the great thing about the High Republic era now is that kind of the books are the main driving force behind this era right now.
right.
So like they're doing these huge widescaping stories that have huge implications from the
Yeah.
galaxy, and then they're able to influence the other media through that.
Right.
And they've been able to do it so far in a way that's like, because even the books, like if you just read the books, you're still missing out, because
Yes.
there's all these, like the novels are more geared towards people our age, and they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Like these novels are actually, there are terrifying parts of it. Like parts of these
Okay.
books are like, especially when you're listening to someone read it, it scares the hell out of me. But and it's clearly meant for, and this is the sort of Star Wars I have wanted for a while. But
Right.
they make young adult novels and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and they continue to move the lore. Like in the High Republic books, the novel series, they're talking about the Drengir threat. And the
Okay.
Drengir are like this sentient plant life that is like imbued by the Force, that's been wreaking havoc on many different worlds.
Okay.
And it's like spoken as like an ancillary event. Like people mention it in these books about, oh,
Sure.
this is like the Drengir, but like the whole young adult novels are focused on the Drengir
Okay.
and the threat they pose to the
Right.
galaxy.
But then in the adult books, they go back to it. They
Yeah.
talk to
And
you
so
about it.
like I haven't read them yet, but like I've been reading about them, and like if you are reading the book, you can point to these moments where like, oh, they're referencing
Yeah.
what happened in this young adult. So like they're I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel like they have a lot more freedom, and at the same time they're doing a really good job at like weaving things together
Sure. Without killing Chewbacca.
without
Yeah.
killing Chewbacca. And
Exactly.
Chewie's probably alive. No, maybe not.
Because
He
how
was
old
like
did they say
200.
he
He was like
was?
100 and, yeah,
200 when
250. Yeah, he wasn't
yeah, he
alive.
wasn't alive
Anyway,
yet.
he's an
Yeah.
old guy. That being said,
And also like when we saw Solo the movie, that's when Han first met Chewie, and Chewie was not like a freedom fighter at the time. He was just a Wookiee.
right.
So if he somehow is back with this, I think it would be a little weird
Yeah.
for him to go from that to then what happened in Solo for them, then what happens in A New Hope.
Yeah. And
So
that's the other great thing about where they're going with the Acolyte and this whole era, is that they're not beholden to that crap anymore. You know, it's
right,
like we don't have to worry about where was Han during this time. It's not
yeah,
going to. The only person they really have to worry about is Yoda, because
Yoda.
Yoda's around somewhere
Yeah,
doing his
Yoda's,
thing,
and I mean he's 900 years old. He's been a Jedi for 700 years at least,
and he's on the
probably,
council.
and
So
he's
like
on the
he's an
council.
important
Yeah,
dude during this era.
so we'll
We'll
probably
probably see him, I'd
see
imagine.
him, or they'll make reference to him.
And that's the thing that annoys me with the books too, is like I get it, like they want to try it, they're telling a different story, they're avoiding, but like they mention Yoda on several occasions. I'm like, just show us Yoda.
Yeah,
I get it's cool that
yeah,
it's Yoda, but like just they're like, oh, is Master Yoda going to be there? No, Master Yoda's away on a well,
right.
come
Just
on,
just include him. Yeah,
then don't
or even
mention him at all.
yeah, even like some of the other books, like when we were talking before about like some of the Thrawn books, where they make Thrawn out to be such an intellect, and in doing so, they're making Darth Vader
Look like an idiot.
look like an idiot.
Yeah,
And I'm like, okay, we can't, he's not,
yeah.
like he can't be that as well. Like as Anakin, was he very emotional? Yes, but I don't think he
He
was
also
an
wasn't an
idiot.
idiot. He
Yeah, he
wasn't
wasn't an
necessarily a
idiot.
genius,
Yeah,
but he was smart.
he
Like
was
he was
smart.
really good
Yeah,
with machines and
yeah,
flying. Like yeah,
yeah,
the newer Thrawn books did make him seem to be a bit of a nincompoop.
yeah. So
That's the word for it.
that's the
Nincompoop.
word for it. All right, so we're gonna review all 6 episodes because they were very long.
Oh yeah.
Each one
Oh
was
yeah.
like
Well, they
so.
were almost the length of a Mandalorian episode, don't you
Yeah,
know?
so this is what maybe it has to do with the production.
I feel like it has to. It must just take so long to make
Yeah,
these things, maybe, because
um,
they're great. But
they're great.
I want each of them to be one 45-minute episode,
Right.
and I want them to release 6 of them.
Yeah, yeah.
An
Like
episode,
they
like you know what I mean,
basically
like
released 2 episodes. One about
2.5 episodes,
two and a half
right? Or
episodes.
like,
One about Morgan Elsbeth,
and
and
one
then
about
one about
Barris,
Barris. Yeah, and they did it before with the
Tales of the Jedi.
Tales of the Jedi as well. But it's just, I don't know. It reminds me, not reminds me of, but it's just like just the fact that they were 15-minute episodes, and you're watching opening credits, closing credits. Now, once putting it on Disney Plus, and it did skip a little bit of that, so you didn't have to watch all of
Right.
it. But like at the same time, it's like, okay, there's 500 people who worked on episode 1. Were there 500 different people that worked on episode 2? Like, I'm sure in the closing credits there was probably a lot of redundant names
Right.
that we could have combined them all together. So I don't know why they do it the way they do it. I'm not a producer. I don't, have the whatever, but They could have just done it in. It would have been a nice
Especially since they're
mini
releasing them all
series.
at once. You
Yeah,
know,
they
like
released all of
it'd
them at
be one
once.
thing if they were releasing them weekly, but like it's
Yeah,
why make us go through all the credits for yeah,
yeah,
you're right.
6 times.
I and you know, we're kind of going to this in a negative. I thought they were good. I really
Yeah,
liked them. I like the premise. For me, it seems like a good way to take characters that it would be weird and shoehorned for them to like work in some of their origin or some of their story into one of the other
into
mediums.
another
But if they
show.
just
Yeah,
took 3 episodes and just focused on them, they can tell
yeah,
that story really well. I liked the Barris story more than the Morgan Elsbeth story, but not much. I thought they were both pretty good.
right.
Um,
Yes, I felt the Barris story was a better because it had a better redemption
it
arc.
had an
So
arc.
it had a good
I think
flow to it.
I think that was the point though. I think that they are purposely juxtaposed against each other because they're both people who fall to darkness. They're both people who want revenge. And you know, through the 3 episodes each, we see you can go one way, which is to, you know, learn from your mistakes, like reflect and
Yeah,
realize what's going on and not let your fear guide your and rule and dominate your future. And then there's the other way, which is to go ahead and
and
keep
just be
pushing into
angry
that.
and just yeah,
And that's where we see their divergent paths. They have similar, you know, origins. They're people getting destroyed. They're you know, they're
yeah. Their
disillusioned.
families been taken from them.
But Morgan, you know, takes that anger and continues to fuel it, whereas Barris kind of looks back she and she mentions it at the end of her thing. She's like, a darkness took me,
Yeah,
which I guess
yeah,
is her kind of way of coming to terms in the future with the fact that she thought back and went, I, because she in the moment didn't think she was wrong. She
right.
wasn't evil ever. You know what I mean? You think
No,
about
no,
Barris and
she was following a good soldier follows orders, the
right,
Clone Wars thing. So she was following orders. She thought the Empire was she was sold on the story that the Empire was going to be doing good
right.
for the whole galaxy. So she bought in on it.
And it's just like you know, her origin story. She didn't think when she was, you know, doing what she was doing in the Clone Wars that she was evil. She thought the Jedi were corrupt,
Right.
and she was trying to. She was wrong, you know,
Yeah.
misguided, whatever. But again, she was never doing it as like I'm an evil kill.
Yeah.
She wasn't that kind of
No.
person.
No.
She was misguided.
Misguided. Right. So I want to do a little bit of deep dives first, a little about the
Let's
characters.
get it. Let's get into it.
In episode 1, uh Morgan Elsbeth is battling against General Grievous. And I wanted to know more about this Grievous character because like we've seen him a lot and we
Hmm.
know who he is and we know that he's a bad guy and you know a general in the Empire and all that stuff. But I was like, what is he? What is this?
Hmm.
So I went to Wikipedia, I should say, and he's a Kalish male
Yeah.
warlord.
The droid part of him is not part of
No.
him, right? That's
So
from
yeah.
a
So
thing.
yeah, that's which is funny because the way they worded in here, it brings it back to the Obi-Wan, nope, the Boba Fett series with the
Hmm.
biker gang who was
Hmm.
all about getting
Oh, the
the
augments or
augment,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah,
the droid augmentations and stuff. So Kalish, I'm hoping I'm saying the
yeah,
Caleesh.
Kalish,
Yeah,
right?
Kaleesh. Kaleesh were a reptilian sentinel species from the wild space world of Kali and were formidable warriors not known for their kindness and typically concealed their features behind traditional war masks, which is what that skull
Yeah,
is a war mask that he wears on top of his face. Frequently crafted from the skulls of fearsome beasts in their homeworld. Despite their technological inferiority, they engaged in conflicts, notably against their planetary neighbors, the Huck. The most notorious members of this species, General Grievous, fought as supreme marital commander of the separatist droid armies during the Clone Wars. So I was very confused as to how he had a bone face, and now I learned that it was a mask that he
hmm,
wore. And then also going back to the details on Grievous, it says became fearsome warrior, war against same things. Grievous and continued his conquest quickly. Oh, his original name was Quaimian J. Shalala.
I have a cousin named that.
You do. I
Yeah,
met her. She's
yeah,
really nice.
wonderful woman.
Yeah. Eventually took the name of Grievous and continued his conquest, quickly becoming a warlord, earning a bloody reputation for his homeworld. Gathering together, Grievous traveled and fought alongside a group of personal bodyguards, the Izvorkia. For years, they shared in his victories and a love of battle as well. Grievous's potential was seen by the Sith Lord Dark Sidious and Darth Tyrannus,
Tyrannus.
also known as Dooku,
Count Dooku.
the Count of
Monte
Sereno,
Cristo.
Monte Cristo, as he held his people in a merciless war against the Yarmari. In time, Grievous led the Kaleesh forces with his ferocity and determination, brutally punishing the insect species from his homeworld. However, the Galactic Republic and Jedi Order interfered. Blah blah blah. It says somewhere that here it is. He could when he sometimes later, members of the Executive Separatist Council of the newly formed Confederacy of Independent Systems, led by Dooku, conspired to mortally wound Grievous in a bid to convert him into a super cyborg,
Hmm.
subverting to their cause. Dooku's agents sabotaged Grievous's shuttle, which resulted in a gruesome crash that left the man on the brink of death. Grievous was offered conversion into an enhanced cybernetic being by the Sith, who were interested in experimenting with technologically advanced beings. His remaining vital organs implanted into a powerful robotic body. After the majority of his organic body was destroyed, but over time he gradually started to make considerable improvements to his cybernetic body.
Hmm.
So that's where and when he lost his most 90% of his Kaleesh body and became this battle cyborg.
All
And
right.
Kaleesh traditionally, normally, only have 2 arms and 2 legs, but as we know, Grievous,
He's got a couple more.
he's got a couple more.
Yeah.
So yes, so that was when we saw him on the screen in the first episode, hunting down and fighting Morgan Elsbeth. I was like, you know what? I don't know enough about him. Now I do, and now so do you. Thanks
So
to
do
me
we
because
all.
I am
Way
awesome.
to go, Rob.
Yep, there we go. So Morgan Elsbeth. Now, the only thing I didn't like about this series was, I'm just going to bluntly say it like this: why? Why?
Why
Why?
are we
Why do
doing
we care about these two? That's the only thing that I said to
I
myself was like,
I have definitely heard many people asking about what happened to Barriss. I
okay,
don't know that I've heard a whole lot of people clamoring for a Morgan Elsbeth origin story.
right,
But definitely there has been some chatter about, oh, what happened to Barriss after Order 66. I think there was some stuff out there about maybe she had died, but that was retconned.
okay,
But yeah, I mean, there's other. I don't know. For me, it's less why these two and more why only these two. But
right,
again, I think it
yeah,
might have to do with production. I know that animation takes so long to do.
yeah.
Um,
And the animation in this was very clean,
it
very
was, although I did take note of the fact that all of the fight animation was your standard animation. It wasn't like a motion cap.
the motion
Like we didn't
capture.
have
Okay,
any of those scenes where we had motion capture like we have in the past. Which was fine, never. But then I get, whenever I see one of those motion cap, it's clear like, oh, this is going to be a
this
good
is
fight.
real. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna be a good fight. Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I guess I see what they're doing. They just finished their first season of Thrawn. I'm betting we're gonna see in Ahsoka season 2. This is gonna have
right.
implications
Yeah.
with more because a lot of Morgan Elsbeth's thing is, first of all, I didn't know there was light side Night Sisters.
No,
That
no.
was news to me. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool. But apparently they have been mentioned in the past. I think the first mention of them is actually in the book you read, The Courtship of Princess Leia.
Actually, yes. Now that you say that, that is true because they were helping Luke and Leia. They were like teaming up with them
Hmm.
um
That's actually the
to
first
fight
book
against.
that they mentioned Night Sisters in. That's what brought Night Sisters into canon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they've been around, but I guess I didn't. realize. And then I saw it. I'm like, that makes sense. Like we see these Night Sisters
You
that
know,
use this magic,
right.
but it's just the Force, but it's another way of accessing the Force. So
Yeah.
clearly there must be a light side counterpart to it. You know what I mean?
So it was funny because as I was reading it, I didn't think too much into it, but I was just like, there were, Night Sisters. I was like, oh, but then they were like taking care of them. And
Right.
I was like, maybe it's just because they are in a feud with the other Night Sisters,
The Mountain
the
Tribe,
mountain
right?
tribe. So I was like, okay, whatever. But now, after seeing this, we see, okay, they were actually good Night Sisters and bad Night Sisters.
And
But yeah,
this is another one of those moments where number one, reading the books like gives you that little tiny extra payoff. You know, it's like,
yeah,
oh, you can make that connection, but also where what's a freaking Dave Filoni is taking something from
yeah,
that
taking
and
something from it.
bringing it,
And
putting it on
yeah,
screen.
yeah. So, real fast, Morgan Elsmith was a force sensitive human female Night Sister and industrialist who was instrumental in the construction of the Imperial Navy during the regime of the Galactic Empire and a dedicated follower of Grand Admiral Mithral,
Mithron Uodo.
Mithron Uwada, yep, which we all know as
Thrawn.
Thrawn. After the fall of the Empire, Morgan sought to return Thrawn to the galaxy and lead an army along with the aid of Imperial sympathizers to achieve this.
So here's the thing with it. So like, the big moment in with Captain Pelion. And again, as soon as we saw the TIE Defender, I
Yes.
knew, all right, we're
Yep.
gonna have Thrawn in here somewhere. And then
Yeah,
that
because
Pelion
she
hopped
was
in.
designing it, and then
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty neat.
Yeah, I like the way they did that. It
And
was
I
really
I
cool.
like how, once again, this is a typical Thrawn storyline where the other Imperial people are like, "You're an idiot, and we're not doing this,"
And
and then
Thrawn,
Thrawn is
yeah.
like,
Wait
"I
a
see
minute.
what you're
I
doing
got you
here.
here.
I
Yeah.
got you." Yeah.
But Pelion, he asked that question, why are you doing this? And she goes, for the glory of the Empire. And he's like, nah,
Now,
you're
why
lying.
why are you really
Yeah.
doing this?
And then, when Thrawn calls her on it, she's like, for revenge and all this stuff. If you like pull that line forward into Ahsoka season 1, and you think about like the political things that are going on, Morgan is trying to get to Thrawn, all this stuff, but it's like, why is Morgan fighting for the Empire? Like she says for revenge, but the Empire
Yeah,
is
the Empire's what
what
did
did it.
this. Yeah.
So it's not, if you think about it that way, she's using the Empire to find more Night Sisters.
Right.
That's her goal.
That's her goal.
It's not to align with
Yeah.
the Empire. It's not glory to the Empire. It's and you carry that through. She gets to whatever the freaking world is. I forget. In
Yeah, and they were showing that too,
yeah,
like, in this.
yeah.
Like, that's the village that she was in there where everybody's like, "Oh, please, you promised us," when she was selling the plans
Oh, that was in the town where she fought Ahsoka in the Mandalorian,
in The Mandalorian,
right?
yes,
But
yes.
then when they go to that alternate world with the new Night Sisters on it, right? In
Okay, right,
Ahsoka,
yeah, oh, yeah, in
yeah,
Ahsoka, yeah, yeah,
that's more, I think, her end game. You know what I mean?
right.
Like she's been working with the Empire all these years, but she says she wants revenge. Now she's found more Night Sisters, and we even see in Ahsoka season 1, the Night Sisters aren't cool with Thrawn. Really,
No.
like there's that one part
Yeah.
where they're bombing the temple, and they're like, "Oh, I don't want them to bomb that temple."
Yeah, yeah,
So I think we're gonna see, you know, yeah, she worked with Thrawn for all these years, and she said she wants revenge. She's not doing it for the Empire. She wants
no.
revenge, and
Yeah,
I think we'll see some of that.
yeah, 100%. So yeah, so those 3 episodes did have a lot of good callbacks. One, learning more about her relationship with Thrawn. Also, when the Mountain Night Sisters took her in,
Hmm.
and then they're I don't want to say training her or whatever they were doing with her, but then like the Mother Night Sister was
Hmm.
like, "Oh, you like I see bad things for
Yeah.
you." And it was really cool cinematography wise because she's like, and she's standing in front of fire,
Yeah.
like it's like, yeah, you're like the devil or whatever type of thing. Like,
And that scene is mirrored at the end of the season,
yes,
because at the end of the series, she's standing in front of her own town that she set
yep,
on
that she
fire,
set on fire.
and with fire behind her, and
Yeah,
it's interesting. Again, cinematography for like
for
a
a cartoon.
cartoon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for a 45-minute episode of a
yeah.
cartoon. Yeah. But yeah, and the callback to her town that was in the Mandalorian,
Hmm.
as well as seeing her really go into Thrawn and becoming a good, not number one, but a good ally to
Hmm.
Thrawn in the beginning. So it was neat. It was a good storyline. It wasn't anything drastic, I would say. Like we
No.
didn't really we learned a little bit about her. We learned, why she's so angry,
Yeah, we caught
but
her motivations. That's about
yeah,
all we really caught.
but
That
that's
was,
all we really
yeah.
got out of that. And then the next 3 episodes were all about Barris Offee. Is that how
Hmm.
you say her last name?
Yep.
And she so it was funny, like I have such a bad memory. Like I remember seeing, the yellow skin and the tattoos and stuff like that, but I couldn't remember where or when or whatever.
Right.
So she's also, and I like how this has been updated
Since it was released.
since it
Yeah.
was released. Yeah, also known under the title of the Healer. Later in her life, was
Right.
a force sensitive
Mary Ellen.
Miriella female and a Jedi Knight that fell to the dark side of the Force during the period of the Clone Wars. Trained as a Padawan under Jedi Master Luminaria.
Luminara Syndulla.
Yep. Uh, Offie wielded a blue lightsaber that she used when participating in the first battle of Geonosis. She preferred studying ancient Jedi texts to fighting. During her time as a Jedi Padawan, Offie forged a friendship with Ahsoka Tano, the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker. Though rather differently in personalities, the two bonded through their shared experiences in combat, including at the Second Battle of Geonosis. As the Clone Wars continued, Offie grew disillusioned with the Jedi's role in the conflict, believing they had strayed from the ideals that the Jedi Order was supposed to represent, becoming particularly wary of the Jedi Council. Deciding to act on her concerns, she orchestrated the bombing of the Jedi Temple as a means further distrust to foment further distrust of the Jedi. Despite their previous friendship, she allowed Tana to be framed for orchestrating the bombing, even going as far as impersonating a former Sith apprentice, Asajj Ventress, to frame her former friend. Skywalker ultimately ended up catching Offie and bringing her to justice. Offie finally confessed just moments before Tana was convicted of the crime, clearing the
Togruta.
Torguta's name. Offie expressed her views of the Jedi Order in front of the Tribune, showing that she had been corrupted by the dark side before being taken away. So that's all what happened during the Clone Wars. And now after reading that, I go, oh yeah, I do remember
Right.
that's who she was.
Yep.
But this was a much different story. Like this really went into afterwards, I guess, right? When she was then because who were the Sith? They weren't Sith, but the
Inquisitors.
Inquisitors. Yes. So she gets like captured by the Inquisitors and taken in, and basically what the Jedi does or what the Sith do so often is, mess with your mind
Hmm.
and manipulate your mind into thinking that the good guys are bad and
And the
you
bad
are
guys are,
now
yeah.
the good guy. You
Yep.
are not the bad guy. You are doing the right things. They were saying things like, the Jedi can only teach you so much. We're going to teach you how to be complete
Right.
and, leaning it that way. And so then she becomes and starts helping out the Inquisitors and
So the whole thing with that, I mean, so they started off in her cell, right? And she sees the Jedi Temple during Order 66,
Mhm.
and then she's brought to the uh Fortress Inquisitorius, which is under construction,
Right.
right? We've
Yeah.
seen that in several. We saw it in Obi-Wan. We saw it in a couple different things. And right now in the time period where we're at, it's still under construction. Um, and she's brought to this place with two other Jedi.
Mhm.
And usually the thing with Inquisitors, right? They don't just say, "Hey, you're a Jedi, be an Inquisitor."
Right.
They find the ones that they know they're questioning the Jedi. They're
Yes.
they're unsure. They're doubting their beliefs. And so the three of them, Barris and these other two, are three people that clearly like they judged. All right, these three might be able to be convinced.
Convinced. Yeah.
And so but like Barris, her whole thing was she thought the Jedi were on the wrong track. And so it wasn't hard to convince her. The only thing with her was she was actually convinced that they were not on the right track. She wasn't convinced that, and it twisted her necessarily, but like so when she saw she wanted to be a Jedi,
Right.
but what she thought the ideal of the Jedi was. And
Yes.
so you saw her going on Inquisitor missions and like trying to talk to people and like
Right. Because
reason with
yeah.
them.
So even in going backwards, when they brought those three people in, then it became just two at the end. They go, okay, you're our final two.
Right.
and they
A
throw
lightsaber.
one lightsaber
Yeah.
down, and they go, "Okay, now you guys have to battle to the death, and whoever wins will get to, you'll get to be a part of us."
It's like that scene from Dark Knight where
Yeah,
he snaps the pool cue in half.
yeah, uh-huh. And the other person was like, "Oh, we're not going to do it." And it was neat because, the force field was, you could see it as it was shrinking in, like
Yeah.
in Fortnite,
Yep.
was like
Yeah.
burning the ground. And she was like, "Look, I don't want to die." So,
And she choked him. She didn't
she
even. It
yeah,
wasn't even as like clean as like picking up a lightsaber and defending herself.
no.
She like had to. She snapped his neck. Man,
Yeah. It was
pretty dark.
deep. It was dark, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then, which fast forward to the end when the Inquisitor finds her again.
It's the fourth sister,
The
by the way.
fourth sister finds her, and then she's battling her without a lightsaber.
And that was pretty clearly a direct callback to her fight with the Grand Inquisitor, where
Yes.
he's fighting without a lightsaber.
Uh-huh.
He says you're something cloud or makes you predictable, and then at the end she says
She says
your
the same
anger
thing.
makes you
Yeah.
predictable.
So it was a neat callback there as well. But then, going back to what you were saying, she's going on all these Inquisitor missions, and they told her, "We are doing good by stopping all of these uprisings,"
Right.
basically. And she was like, "Okay, well, we can stop these uprisings without killing people." And they're like,
Yeah.
"Nope, you got to kill them all."
It's not our thing.
And she's like, "No, but why do we didn't need to do that?" And then you could see the cracks
Hmm.
starting to appear where she was like, "Okay, this isn't the bag of goods I was sold on."
Right.
And to the point where it was a good twist when she goes, "Well, there's still one more Jedi that you need to
Right.
kill then." And it was also cool. She like force just pushed her, like snuck her, like
Yep.
right off the edge, and then escaped. And I was like, okay, like that's her now turning to the good side again, going back to the light side. Um, so yeah, and it was fun when I guess they brought the children. I forget how it ended. Where like they how
Well,
they
there was the kid who needed the healer,
yes, oh
right?
yeah,
There
and
was
then
like she
she's the
essentially turned
healer.
into a shaman.
Yeah, yeah, she was
Um,
like almost like Luke
yeah.
in episodes 7, 8, and 9.
Now, here's something I saw that people are kind of speculating on because we see this. There's clearly been a time jump
Right.
for Barris,
Yes.
not for the fourth sister. Like the
No,
fourth sister looks
the sister,
exactly the same,
she ages a lot
but
differently.
Barris looks like she's been like just beaten in the face
Yeah.
for a couple hours. But the thought there is that was purposefully done
Okay.
because like we see like she's the healer, right? So she's been
Yeah.
using the force to heal people, and we see Ray specifically mentions that it's a life essence transfer. You're transferring some of your
Sure.
life into
So
them. And Kylo
she's
did it so much that he died. So maybe
yes.
she's been doing this for X many years,
Right.
and that's her way of penance. Is like I'm giving my life
I'm giving
little
my
by
life
little
to all
away.
these people who need help.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
by the time this fourth sister finds her and tracks her down, she's been prematurely aged because of it.
Sure. Yeah.
And which of course won't matter. Age shouldn't be a thing in Star Wars that matters as far as like your
Right. Your
fighting
skill.
prowess
Yeah.
or anything like
Yeah.
that. Which is why she's able to still kind of dip dodge and everything, but she does look a
Looks a little bit
little
older
weary,
because
little weary.
her force was pulling out all of her life essence.
Hmm.
So yeah. So they were good.
I
I
don't think Barris is dead. I think we would have
no.
seen if Barris was dead. So I'm sure we're going to see more of Barris at
Yes.
some point. Um, but yeah, I like the Barris episodes. I like the way they tied in.
Yeah, and I like, I don't know. I'm a sucker for a good redemption story,
Sure.
and she had more of a redemption story than Morgan Elsbeth did. But by the time we see Morgan Elsbeth in Ahsoka and Mandalorian, like she's still angry.
Yeah, we know
So
she's a
yeah,
villain.
she's a
Yeah, for
villain.
sure.
She's never going to be a
Barris has
good
always
guy.
been more complicated than that.
Yeah. So they were fun. They were good episodes. Um, like I said, why, and you said why not more,
Yeah.
which is similar. Like
I love the concept. I love what they're doing with it.
yeah,
I would like more than just two of these characters every year. You know what I
right. I
mean?
was
Like
Tales of what was the first one?
the
Tales
Jedi.
of the Jedi.
I think the way they're doing it, it seems like every other year they're dropping one of these on May 4th. Because last year it was season 2 of Visions. And I
Right.
think the year before that, it was season
Yeah.
1 of
Tales of the
Tales of the
Jedi
Jedi.
came out in 2022.
Yeah. On May the 4th?
It just says 2022. It doesn't say
Yeah.
the release date. Oh no, October
Okay.
26th.
So it wasn't a May 4th
Yeah, so it
release.
wasn't a May
Okay.
4 release. But yeah, like I don't know. I can't imagine it taking 2 years to make these cartoons.
Yeah.
Um maybe it did. I don't know. But I would like to see more, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, these two characters were good. I really could care less about Morgan Elsbeth. Um, it was nice to see it, but whatever. I would have rather seen somebody else who we have
Give me a
had.
Mace Windu origin
Yeah,
story, or
yeah,
give me
like something that we've
a.
had time with. You
Yeah.
know, something that we care more about.
My assumption is it's all about setting up what's next.
Yeah,
So
I
my
can see
guess is
that.
they did Morgan Elsbeth because, hey, this is going to be important
Right
for.
for the next Thrawn
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Which is I get, but at a certain point, it's like that's fine. Do that plus all the other things we like.
right, right. Like throw in somebody else in it with it as well.
Yeah.
You know, like give us somebody else as well. Give
And
us.
and now that I'm thinking about it, I'm betting we see Barriss in Ahsoka season 2.
I can see that because she was a good friend of Ahsoka.
And at the end of that, when they talk about sending, like, oh, I have a contact I can send you to when they're talking to the family.
Right,
I mean, it seems like it
right.
might
Like she could be
be
sending her
Ahsoka.
to Ahsoka.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like it seems like it would make sense that maybe if she's done this and she's kind of made her peace, she might have reached out to Ahsoka and
yeah.
like I don't know.
Who was in? We saw the bounty hunter that came in Bad Batch. She what the heck was her name? There was like a preview in the preview. We saw her. And we are like, oh, she's coming. She was in one episode of the Bad Batch.
Asajj Ventress?
Yeah, Asajj
Oh,
Ventress. Yeah. So it's gonna be something like that where it's gonna be a one episode story arc cameo or something like
yeah.
that of whatever. So, but it'll be worth it.
Yep.
So,
All right. Well, that was Tales of the
Tales
Empire.
of the
Not
Empire.
not Tail. The Empire doesn't have long fluffy tails. Some of them might.
It'd be cool if they
Some of
did.
them might.
Yeah.
They'd
I
be
mean, there is a Wookiee, but Wookiees don't have tails either.
they don't, do
Oh,
they?
did you see? There was a meme and it said, "What does what does Chewbacca have down there? Does he like a dog where he has a red rocket or?"
Oh no. I don't want to. There are certain
And-
things that I don't want to know, and knowing the
I
internet,
know, yeah.
you can find
Oh,
out.
yeah. You'll find, yeah. The people will make AI images of whatever it
Dude,
is.
I downloaded a 2-hour trial for Baldur's Gate 3. You ever play Baldur's Gate when you were younger?
I remember the name. I don't remember if I played it
So
or
Baldur's
not.
Gate 3, my students rave about it. They say you got to
Okay.
play Baldur's Gate. It's very well rated. So I tried the 2-hour version, the trial, and it is a good game.
Okay.
The character creation
Okay.
is ridiculous.
Okay.
You ever hear about, there's these character creations and you can change so much. It's like,
Right.
there are 6 different genital options.
Oh my goodness.
Literally, it says which genitals, and you get to pick.
Oh geez.
And you look at each one, and you go, "Do I want that piece of genital,
Oh gosh.
or you want this genital, or that type of genital? Which type? Okay, this type of genital. How do you want this type of genital to look?"
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, my students told me to play this
Yeah,
game.
yeah. Like
What
I'm
the
being
hell?
told. You're like, guys, do you remember the character creation?
Oh, maybe that's why they're telling me. Like,
Yeah,
we
you're
made
like,
this how you play the game.
yeah. We're like, ah.
Oh boy. Anyway, so I don't know how I got at that, but it's about time.
It is. Well, it's because we're an hour and 10 into it, so it's definitely about
It's
time
about that
to.
way.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll be back soon. We're going to be talking more about the ending of Bad Batch. I want to talk a little bit about Jedi Survivor, talk some High Republic books,
And the Acolyte's coming out soon.
and the
so,
Acolyte, and we got to
yeah.
start putting up missing posters for Rob's beard.
That's right. I finally shaved it off.
So
Yeah.
it's a little bit there. But,
Yeah. I mean, I shaved it weeks ago, and it's whatever. So,
but either way, from all of us here in
Bantha Milk headquarters.